Tale of the Maniac. The Maniac in the Woods. The Maniac in the Woods. It was a dark and stormy night, and Emily was driving home from her friend's house. As she drove through the woods, she noticed a figure walking on the side of the road. She slowed down and rolled down her window to see if the person needed help, but as she got closer, she realized that the person was not just any ordinary person. He was a maniac. The maniac had a crazed look in his eyes and was covered in blood. Emily quickly rolled up her window and tried to speed away, but the maniac jumped in front of her car. She slammed on the brakes, but it was too late. The maniac was on top of her car, trying to break through the windshield. Emily screamed for help as she tried to get away, but the maniac wouldn't let go. The Maniac in the Basement. The Maniac in the Basement. Samantha had just moved into her new house, and she was excited to explore every corner of it. She had heard rumors that the previous owner was a maniac who had been arrested for murdering several people, but she didn't believe them. One day, she decided to check out the basement, which had been locked when she first moved in. As she descended the stairs, she heard strange noises coming from the darkness. She turned on her flashlight and saw a figure in the corner. It was the maniac. He had somehow escaped from prison and had been hiding in her basement. Samantha screamed and tried to run back up the stairs, but the maniac grabbed her ankle and pulled her down. He dragged her to a corner and tied her up. Samantha knew that she was going to die. The Maniac in the Elevator. The Maniac in the Elevator. Peter was a businessman who worked in a high-rise building. One day, he got into the elevator to go to his office on the 25th floor, but when the doors closed, he realized that he wasn't alone. There was a maniac in the elevator with him. The maniac was wearing a suit and was holding a knife. Peter tried to push the emergency button, but it was disabled. The maniac started to approach him, and Peter backed away. He knew that he had to defend himself. Peter tried to punch the maniac, but he was too strong. The maniac grabbed his arm and twisted it, causing Peter to scream in pain. Just as the maniac was about to strike him with the knife, the elevator doors opened, and Peter managed to escape. The Maniac in the Forest. The Maniac in the Forest. John and his friends had decided to go camping in the forest for the weekend. They had set up their tents and were enjoying the peace and quiet of the woods, but as night fell, they heard strange noises coming from the darkness. They dismissed it as just animals, but they were wrong. As they sat around the campfire, they saw a figure walking towards them. It was the maniac. He was covered in dirt and leaves and was holding an axe. John and his friends tried to run, but the maniac was too fast. He caught up to them and started swinging his axe. John's friends were killed instantly, but John managed to grab a stick and fight back. He hit the maniac with all his might, causing him to fall to the ground. John thought that he had killed the maniac, but as he approached him, the maniac got up and attacked him. John knew that he was going to die, but he didn't go down without a fight. The Maniac in the House. The Maniac in the House. Leela was a young woman who lived alone in a small house. She was watching TV when she heard a strange noise coming from upstairs. Leela paused the TV and listened intently. The noise was faint, but she could hear something moving around upstairs. Her heart began to race as she realized that she was home alone and that the noise could only mean one thing. There was someone in her house. Leela slowly stood up and crept towards the staircase, trying to make as little noise as possible. She reached the bottom of the stairs and peered up towards the landing. The upstairs was shrouded in darkness, and she couldn't see anything. She knew that she had to investigate, but she was terrified. She slowly made her way up the stairs, her hand gripping the banister tightly. When she reached the top of the stairs, she paused and listened. The noise was coming from her bedroom. She took a deep breath and crept towards the door. As she pushed, the door opened. She saw a figure standing in the middle of her bedroom. It was the Maniac. He was wearing a mask and was holding a knife. Leela screamed and tried to run, but the Maniac was too quick. He grabbed her by the hair and pulled her back into the room. Leela struggled and kicked, but the Maniac was too strong. He tied her up and began to taunt her. He told her that he had been watching her for weeks and that he knew everything about her. He told her that he was going to kill her slowly and that she was going to suffer. Leela was terrified. She knew that there was no escape. The Maniac was in control, and there was nothing that she could do to stop him. She closed her eyes and prayed for a miracle. Just as the Maniac was about to strike, the front door burst open, and a group of police officers stormed into the house. They had been tipped off about the Maniac's location and had come to rescue Leela. It turned out that the police had been tracking the Maniac for weeks, and they had finally caught up with him just in time to save Leela's life. She was grateful to be alive, but the memory of that terrifying encounter would stay with her for the rest of her life. As for the Maniac, he was sentenced to life in prison. His reign of terror finally brought to an end, and Leela, though shaken, slowly began to regain her sense of security, knowing that the police were always there to protect her and her community. The end.